What is something that your parents did that you swore never to repeat to your own kids? Try to be controlling over my kid's life and blame all their problems on the other parent. Dude, when I was 15, my dad, an MD, decided to have a meeting with me to discuss my future and make a choice what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a programmer so bad. I loved that. So I said programming, software engineering. He went on for over an hour how that profession is lame and you'll always be behind the scenes unrecognized. This was back in 2004. How wrong was he? So, I didn't know what to tell him. I remember my cousin, who was a few years older at the time, told me accounting would be a good fit for me if I didn't know what to pick. It would be easy for me and I'd fly through my degree. So I remembered that and said, all right, I'll go into accounting. He literally exploded in my face, yelling and shouting, how could I throw my future away? I was scared of him. I never was close to him. He barely spent time with me my entire life. This grown-ass man was never there for me, but decided to control my life. I knew what he wanted me to say. I just wanted the yelling and shouting to stop, and I wanted him to calm down. So, I said defeatedly, okay, I'll be a doctor. He immediately turned around, smiled happy and congratulated me. I felt what it's like to have a part of me die that day. I wasted 3 years of life on med school before I was like this. Got depressed and asked my sister to help me convince him to transfer over to engineering school, but my life was never the same. And my psyche was changed as well. I easily give up now, more irritable, can't sleep well at all, etc. So I get what you mean. My kids will choose what they want to be, even if it's curling. Redo things they've done because it's not the exact way I would have done it. My mom would refold the laundry or remake my bed. Drove me nuts and made me feel like, why even bother trying? I sometimes wonder if I was affected by the same kind of thing. Not exactly the same, but essentially, when I was a kid, my mom would tell me to clean my room and make my bed. I'd do exactly that to the best of my ability, then I'd go get her so she could tell me if I was done. It almost never failed. She'd tell me that my room wasn't clean enough and my bed wasn't made enough. Then I was left to try to figure out what I was missing. I would try straightening things more, then get her again, and she'd tell me the room still wasn't clean enough and the bed not made enough. I would just feel baffled because I had no idea what more I could do before it was enough. I felt like there was some invisible mess that she could see, but somehow I couldn't. I couldn't understand what I was missing, and it would never be explained to me exactly what still needed to be straightened up or what part of my bed still needed to be made. So now, as an adult, in just about any context, I often have this underlying self-doubt that I am missing something, somehow, and I can't trust myself to know when I've done enough. Refuse to admit I was wrong. The only semblance of an apology I've ever received from my mother was, "I'm sorry you feel that way." I don't think she's ever actually apologized or taken blame for her actions in my 30-odd conscious years. If I ever outsmarted my mom, it was considered attitude. I get her thought process. She of course had been around longer than a 13-year-old. So clearly there's nothing I could say to her she didn't already know, and she obviously knows better than me. My mom also never apologized. If it ever became clear she was in the wrong, she'd laugh and say she didn't remember saying that, or I must have had some sort of attitude, and that's why she acted upset. That is not the philosophy I will bring to my kids. It's gonna be a learning experience for the both of us. My dad would get mad at me sometimes too, and a lot of those times were warranted, and a lot were not. Anytime I proved him wrong, he'd apologize immediately and leave it at that. One time when I was around 15, we were both being dickheads and didn't speak for a night. In retrospect, I was the main dickhead, but he was a close second. He came in the next day and apologized anyway. He told me he was the adult in the situation and he hadn't been. He hated things being off with us, and he loved me. That is exactly how I hope to be with my kids. Lecture. My mom could go on for hours for even small misbehaviors. Somehow, it usually looped around to how I didn't keep my room clean, even though the rest of the house was just as much of a mess or worse. When I need to have a stern or serious discussion with my kids, I force myself to make my point in 5 minutes or less. I've even said stuff like, look, this is taking way too long, just don't do disallowed thing again, okay? I also apologize if I yell, as soon as I am emotionally able to after an angry outburst. I don't remember mom ever doing that. I received so many lectures that went on for ages while just repeating the same things over and over again. It was so frustrating to hear something said for the 14th time asked if I understood, and even when a yes answer was given the lecture still continued. This is so relatable. If I were to tell my mum that she was going on and on about something little, she would only start complaining even louder or have too many pets in the house. I loved them all, but at the highest we had 11 cats and 3 dogs, and it was just kind of embarrassing, and I never wanted to bring people over to my house. Your mom is that granny we see in movies. Minimize anything they pursue. Edit. Hey, thanks for the award, that's so kind. My mother would absolutely burn down any dream I had as a kid. Singer? Well, that's nice, but it will never happen. Gymnast? We can't afford that. But she never went without beer, weed, or smokes. I was 12, of course it wasn't gonna happen, but Jesus woman, a little support. Be unapproachable. Come talk to me anytime about anything. Everything can be fixed. My mom was super liberal with the belt. She was also very religious and very judgmental. But she'd still have the nerve to always be like, why don't you talk to me about things? My son hides things from his mom and waits until he can tell me because she won't respond appropriately. He lost a video game and was lying to her about having lost it, but was so scared that she would find out he was lying. He told me in the car when I picked him up, and I told her I needed to look for something of his that he wanted. All he ended up doing was having it wedged in his game case where he couldn't see it. My 6-year-old was giving himself anxiety because of a stupid Nintendo Switch game, because his mom would have belittled and spanked him instead of helping look for it. It breaks my heart. Edit. We're divorced. Edit 2. I'm getting entirely too much advice from what are obviously children and wanting me to violate court orders or to report spankings as abuse. I'm also sorry some of you feel I'm a bad parent because I can't get sole custody and take away his mother's visitation. The real world is different from Reddit, folks. Use them as leverage against the other parent. Abuse them, allow them to be abused by a significant other, abandon them, then return years later once they've grown, and try to cause them as much pain as possible for who knows why. I have 4 sons and I genuinely can't imagine doing most of what happened to me to them. Blows my mind. Did your parents battle over who would get to claim you as dependents on their taxes too? Didn't expect to wake up to so many other people with the same experience. That's extremely sad. Ooh, this is a big one for me. I'm so disappointed in it. Mom makes up to 6 figures while dad makes 30,000. Mom asks him for money back on the taxes because she let him have the 3 kids as dependents. Teaching them by comparing them to their own better behaved, smarter siblings. In a very condescending manner. SHT, I was compared to other people's kids. Insert other kid's name, would never do that to their parent. Mon, I still am. Wells's friend wouldn't speak that way to their parent. Mom, I'm a 30-year-old man, and you haven't even seen Z's friend since we were 9. You don't know SHT. In Korea, there is actually a term for this. Umchinga, abrev. For mother's friend's son as the symbolic ultimate standard your mom compares you to. Moms meet for chit-chat and brag, and highly exaggerate about their children's achievements, and then use the exaggerated stories at home to compare their children to. Get loaded in front of them. Growing up in a family of drunks has soured me for the most part to drinking even socially. I do partake occasionally, but not often. Deep down, I feel alcoholism is in my genetics, so I steer clear unless the occasion is perfect. Man, I'm struggling so much with this. Borderline alcoholic. Once I start, I find it very hard to stop. Day 5 of being sober. Tell me I depressed them when I confide in them. Sorry, dude. When I came out about it, my mom blamed me and said, "Why are you doing this to me? Like I made up 10 plus years of depression to get at her or something. It's not a good feeling and I get it. God yeah. I love my mom, but whenever I tell her how shit I feel she makes me feel awful for telling her. I always make the mistake of confiding in her and then regret it each time. I told my dad and ever since he calls it my mood issues. Says he doesn't know how my job still employs a guy with a wild card attitude. Not be affectionate. My mom was very distant and not a physically emotional person with me growing up. I realized that if I have kids I'd want to read to them, hug them, celebrate their accomplishments. Overall have them feel comfortable with me to share their thoughts or feelings at it. Whoa. Was not expecting any of the comments or upvotes at all. I just post and keep it moving, but you know what? Hugs for all, only if you consent. I enjoyed reading some of the comments so far and will continue. This has been the most affection I've gotten in quarantine, so I hope you're all doing better than I am. My husband expressed one time how his family wasn't a hugger-type family when he grew up, and so he hugs me all the time. When my youngest was little he is a total man's boy and would get jealous and run in between us, which would lead to the eldest and the dog joining the fun. This has led to hug time, exactly like the Trolls movie. Someone calls hug time, that's it, you drop everything and hug. The dog even knows this statement, edit, mama, not man's lol.